Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at how well the Dragon Ball Heroes units do in the red zone. Now I've just taken a couple of snapshots from some of the final stages from the red zones that I did, but I do want to mention just their overall performance. Now I will say that the Dragon Ball Heroes team, whether it's the Super or the Extreme team, tend to do okay. The most recent EZAs, the most recent sum level units, all tend to do more than fine in the variety of red zones. So Kid Buu, Movie Boss Rush, Broly, Metal Kuda, Golden Frieza, pretty much all Zamasu, pretty much all of the, like different red zones went fine. I'd say, like, in general, I found that, at least for me, overall, the team was quite dupe dependent, and you do have to adjust the team. So, like, a great example is, like, I was taking on the Zamasu fight, and this fight was fine. But then I really had to change out like AGL Metal Golden Frieza Kuda, and he was great in certain fights and then absolutely terrible in others. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in that sense, because you having to kind of juggle units, and if you don't have enough of a roster of selection, you're not going to feel the viability of those units. The stat-wise performance of the team is more than fine. I think one of the big issues, actually, for me, as like a person or as like a player of the game, is that, to be honest with you, the team's health is very low. So the health of the team in general, very low. And this, I think, for me, is probably the biggest issue I have trying to functionally run Dragon Ball Heroes as a team. Like, if you look at, for example, a lot of other teams, their health sits at like 700, 500, well, 700, 800k. And when you look at like the Dragon Ball Heroes team, they're sitting at like barely 500. And this is an issue, because the thing is like, you look at Strength Goku, he can tank some of the hardest hitting attacks in the game for around 500,000 damage, which in another team would be more than fine, because you would tank that and you would still have 300k health to kind of deal with. Now the issue is you don't have that at all, so like you don't have the health to deal with that. And I feel like that is the biggest hindrance in a lot of these fights. There were some fights where you had to be careful, like the AoEs from Zamasu gave Tech Trunks, God Trunks, a huge problem, but we tended to have enough damage for those type of fights. There were some of the longer ones that I think you're very dependent on which units you have, like Movie Boss Rush. I had to switch out Trunks, because there were times where he was just getting caught out by Janemba, but then he was great against Broly, so it was all just a little bit kind of double-edged, tricky to deal with. I will say, for me, overall, I think, listen, you have to sort of roll with these things, especially when you're trying to run like these heroes teams and everything. But I do think, like, for me at least, like, how can I say, I just think, there is still considerations about how well this team functions, without dupes and that. Like, I find, look, a lot of my units have at least the very minimum one dupe, and I think, like, that's honestly probably more needed than not, especially if you're trying to run the team at like a base functional level. Like, I feel like trying to run the team in this hard content like Goku without dupes and stuff like that just does not function the way you would expect him to. So yeah, I think like that is something of a point of concern. I think the team is rather dependent on dupes. Like I don't find the team to be very functional, very well run without dupes. Like it definitely feels like without them it's quite hindered, it's quite limited, and I think it needs those dupes to perform in some of these stages. With that being said, with a little bit of luck your way, the team does tend to then work out really well. Like Kid Buu, you need a couple of dodges and stuff, but it worked really, really well. Everything tended to work quite well once we just had things go our way, which I know people will say, oh, that's most fights in Dokkan, but the thing is like, with the Heroes team, it is one of those things. So, like, I feel like it's more prevalent with Heroes because of their low base stats, that those dupes and having the right moments and the right builds really tends to work out quite well for you. I will say, right now, in the red zones, I did find the extreme team to be a little bit better. I think this is just because of how the red zones are designed. But yeah, overall, I think the Super Dragon Ball Heroes team is a lot of fun. You can definitely do these stages. Just depends on your dupe and roster. But yeah,